Does it bring any memories, like browsing through thousands of samples to find the perfect one that will make people want to dance, but still none of the kick sounds really work? Let's think on what you can do about it. You can either download more samples, which at the end of the day will make things even harder, because the next time you'll have even more kick drum samples to browse through. Or you can create your own perfect kick drum sound from scratch using the tools you already have inside Ableton Live. Especially now when we got that really cool Ableton Drift synthesizer, which comes free in all versions of Ableton Live since the 11.3 update. What's up everyone, I'm BusyLess and welcome to my channel, which is all about making music, sound design, Ableton Live and all things related. Now tell me, does designing your own kick drum sound in a synthesizer feels intimidating? Let me put it that way, it really isn't. It's all about learning a general concept of what kick sound really is and just a bit of how things work inside Drift Synth. And literally in just a few minutes you'll be able to craft your own perfect kick drum sound that fits your track like a glove. Or like a fist to the eye. Like it's punchy, not that it doesn't fit, you get it. So in this video I will teach you how to produce your own fine-tuned kick sound with Ableton Drift Synth, and to do that I will only be using the stock plugins that are available in each version of Ableton Live 11. Even the Ableton Live intro of course, so anyone can easily follow. But if you choose to use a different synth plugin, you can still follow along as these settings can easily be replicated. To make it even easier, I'll give you a free cheat sheet to download that will help you with the key settings that we'll cover in this video. And last but not least, at the end of this video, I'm going to give you one more thing. My Drift Kick Factory Instrument Rack to download for free, and I'll even show you how to use it to make infinite kick drum sounds with a single click. Should you wish to spend even more time listening to even more kick drum sounds, why not? Okay, no time to waste, let's jump into the Ableton and start designing. Okay, so we're in Ableton right now and let's just get going. So first we're gonna just need a drift. That's a drift synthesizer. It's usually in instruments. Drift, as you can see, I have it added to my favorites. You can do that too. And let's add the drift to the new track like that. And what do we hear? Pressing the key. So what do we need to do first? First, let's focus on what this actually gonna be. So this will be a kick. So we will not need a poly mode. We will just need a single key. Let's change it to mono. And we don't need the drift at all. And another thing, we don't need the velocity for now because we want to catch one like really pure sample, and then we're going to just drop it to a simpler or to the drum rack. So let's turn that down, and that's all we're going to be touching right now here. We can turn off the note pitch bend, and now let's focus on the oscillator side. So in order to make a really cool kick drum, we will need to use the sine wave. So we have the sine wave here on oscillator number 2. So let's leave it like that and let's turn down the oscillator number 1 completely. What do we have now? Nice sine wave. So next, if you listen closely to a kick drum, it usually descends in a pitch quite fast. So we're going to do that now. We're going to use an envelope number 2 because we're going to need the first envelope for something else. So let's click on the envelope number 2 just here and let's design it a little bit. So we want the fast attack. And then we don't want to sustain at all because you want the sound to go diving pitch to the bottom. And then we will need a decay of around, let's start with 250. Let's keep decay and release at similar values because that's going to be important in the moment that you're going to release the key fast or a little bit slower. We don't want the sound to be different in these cases. So let's try to keep the decay and release in both of the envelopes quite similar. Now let's listen to it now. Nothing changed because we're going to assign that envelope to a pitch modulation. So there it is. There's a pitch modulation right here. And we have it set up by default to envelope number 2. That's going to make our life easier. So let's crank it up to 100% like so. And how does it sound like now? That's a bit better. Are we going to leave the octave -1? Let's leave it as it is. At the moment, we can always go down an octave on our keyboard and find a nice note. What we want to do next is to design the amp envelope. So that's the envelope number 1. And we're going to do kind of similar thing to what we did in the envelope number 2. We're going to keep the decay kind of short, let's say around 220 for now. We're going to be experimenting with that. And then let's keep the really similar value and sustain. We are going to go down to 0. And we need a little bit longer attack in this case, so we don't get the click at the beginning. But let's listen to it now. That's a bit too high. Let's go down on the keys. Okay. Let's make the decay a little bit longer. Okay, so around like 500. Sounds kind of better. Let's I'll crank the volume up a little bit so you can hear it better. What else we can do? We can add a little bit more of the signal from the oscillator 2 to the filter. So it's going to drive a filter a little bit more. Okay, so it is a little bit more kicking now. And now it all depends how we will change these parameters, like the decay of the envelope number 2. Let's change it now. So we hear that's dropping down in pitch. We can make the decay longer of the amp envelope. And we can just basically play and find whatever suits our needs. Okay, that sounds nice for me. Let's keep this like around 400, almost 500 milliseconds, and decay here. Maybe a bit shorter. We're gonna experiment with that a little bit later. So that's like a kick part of our kick sound. We also need something else. We need a click at the beginning. So like you would hit actual kick drum with a mallet. It's gonna give a little bit like a clicking sound at the beginning. So this drift is basically complete. We will not be changing too much in it at the moment. Just leave it like that. And then we're gonna need another drift, which will be triggered but the same note. So it will be on the same lane of the instruments here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna click on the top. We're gonna press Ctrl G or Command G to group it. And that's gonna create an instrument rack. If we open that, we see instrument rack in here, and we want to add another drift. So let's name this one first so we don't get confused. Let's click here, Control or Command R, and let's name it kick as a body of a kick. And then we can add another drift here. We can play with colors. So this one will be, let's say, yellow. This one will be white. Why not? And then let's rename it here to click. And let's solo that so we can hear only the second oscillator, second drift. In this case, we will not be needing any of the oscillators here. We will be only needing the noise generator, so the white noise generator. So let's go down in volume or signal on oscillator 1, oscillator 2, and then we want to listen to that. Nothing, we want to add the noise first, okay. Okay, so we have a white noise. Let's keep it, let's say, around -10 decibel. Okay, cool. But we want that to be also like very snappy and hitting at the beginning, even before the body of a kick. So let's design the amp envelope first. Of course, don't forget we need to change these things here. So we also need it to be mono. We don't need the drift. We don't need the note pitch band. And we don't want a velocity. So it's always at the same value. We can then control it, catch a really nice sample, and then drop it to drum rack, and then we can play with the velocity afterwards. So let's go down in the sustain about to 0 for sure, and let's listen to it now. So we hear it's going down in volume to 0 quite fast, and that's the decay that's going to determine how fast. So we want to have it pretty fast, like that little clicking sound. Let's keep the release around the same value. So the shorter we're going to go, the shorter the sound's going to be. Okay, and what else we're going to do? We can design a filter a little bit. So let's hit the filter here. Let's play with the filter and let's listen to the sound. So it's closing quite fast. Okay, let's add a little bit of resonance. Attack is fine. Decay is going to be fine. The frequency, we can play with it later as well. That's a bit quiet, but let's play them both together. Okay. Not too bad. Just to make it a slightly bit better, go back to the kick, and then let's play with the filter here. So we can try the different frequencies here. Okay, let's say that's going to be not so bad. Let's change it to type 2, which is a 24 decibels per octave, which is a bit steeper slope, like here. It's already kicking a little bit more. Okay, that sounds nice to me. Yeah, let's play them both together. So if we'll raise the frequency here, that's going to mask and blend a little bit better with the kick. So we want to keep that in mind. And then we can change the volume of a click. Also the decay. Sounds nice to me. Although it is still a little bit weak, but we're gonna fix that in just a moment. So let's say we have these both done. Let's rename the instrument rack to Kick Maker. Kick Maker. Okay. And if we play different notes, we're gonna have different pitches of the kick, of course. So then we can tune that to the song that we're actually playing. Now let's make it a little bit more powerful, because it's not very powerful yet, but that's how we all start with it. So what we're going to do next is we want to add a EQ first, just to be able to control a little bit of these frequencies. So EQ8 is actually unfortunately not available in Ableton intro version. So we're going to use a channel EQ. Let's search for a channel EQ, Control Command F, EQ, that's going to be the first one. Let's add it after the kick maker. Let's add it here. So we just want to play with lows. Let's say how much we're going to lift them. Okay, that's already giving a little bit more juice. Let's go down with the frequency here. Okay, not too bad. We can turn the mids a little bit lower. And we can leave it. We can then play with these frequencies here. Okay, not so bad. So next we want to drive it a little bit harder, so it's hitting really hard. And the best thing and best tool to do that is a saturator. So let's find it. Control Command F, saturator. It's the first one here. Let's add it after the channel EQ. So of course, later you can play with the order of these effects. They don't necessarily have to be like that. This is all basically just to get the idea of how things work, but you can play with it as much as you like. So in saturator, we're going to go to a medium curve. So it's hitting a little bit harder. We're going to add a little bit of a drive, but it is already making difference. Listen to it now. It is already making a lot of a difference. So let's add a little bit of a drive. That's getting really loud. So what it is reminding me about, to drop a limiter at the end, just in case. Let's set the ceiling to this -1.5, and let's leave it like that. So then if we play with the drive, it's getting quite loud. It's already hitting the limiter. So we can turn the output down a little bit, use a soft clip so it sounds a bit nicer, and it's clipping the sound in general anyway. And then we also want to turn this DC on. This is a DC filter, and that's how it sounds now. Okay, not too bad. And then we want to be able to control the transients and to compress it at the very end. So let's add a compressor here. Why not? Command Control F, compressor. The regular compressor will be absolutely fine. Let's add it at the end. And it is not doing much, or it is actually not doing anything at the moment, because we see these dark gray waves here. We want to touch them. So we start compressing, but it's really hard to hear the compression like that, especially when you're beginning. So I have a really cool trick on how to hear the compression, how to start hearing the compression. So we're going to go with the threshold to the minimum, and then we're going to hit the ratio to the maximum. So each time we're going to hit the key, it's going to silence it all. So we won't be able to hear much like so. Which is fine, because now we can actually control how much of this click we want to let through the compressor before it starts compressing. And now we can play with the attack, and let's see what it does. So I have the control just to let the first part of the kick through the compressor without being compressed, and then it's going to compress the rest. So the release is going to determine how fast it's going to release after hitting the compressor, but we won't go that extremely, so you want it to be quite fast. So it's going to come back really quickly after, let's say like, this will be fine for now. So it is really hard. We only hear the click, but now we can try to let go of that threshold a little bit. Okay, we hear it really kicking quite fast. And then we can turn the ratio a little bit down. Let's say 4:1 is absolutely fine. And then you can, of course, play with the threshold now just to hear what it does. From 0 to max, you can find something in between. We're going to use the limiter at the end. So in order to make it really loud, we can just crank the gain up. That's really loud. We see it's already hitting the limiter here. So let's go down a bit. And now basically the kick is done. So we can only play with the parameters here just to make it different. We can map it to the macros, which is a very good idea, because then we will be able to control everything on one page. Like we're going to have some macros here. We can just map, let's say, a decay to one and release the same one, and then we can play with the decay release together. We can map the same from the kick side, not from the click side. Then we can just play with the decay here. So this is basically all you need to know to be able to create two instances of a drift. One will just do the kicking sound like this. The other will do a clicking sound like this. They all together sound like this. And we can play with the parameters here. We can make it more prominent or not. We can play with the decay, with the filters, with everything. We can play with the EQ, saturator. This is all. And then at the end, of course, what you can do is to group everything together. So you'll be able to map the macros to all the parameters. So let's press Command G, Control G. That's the one new instrument rack. And then these macros can control these macros. And all the effects that are in the chain, but after the drift synthesizers. And always make sure to save your project with this icon. Just name it nicely and save it as you would like to find it later. You can also add it to your favorites or to use these collections here, which I actually did. Because at the end of the day, it's all about making the music you love and having fun doing it. And one important thing, make sure to do breaks, because these sounds can get tiring pretty quick. Unless you want to get back at your neighbors for that party they've thrown last weekend that was so loud you couldn't hear your thoughts. Then instead of headphones, use ear stoppers. Now, as I've promised, I'll show you the device that you can download today and start making all sorts of kicks. It is free. It is using only the stock plugins you can find in Ableton intro version. So check this out. Let's go to my drums. This is the Drift Kickmaker 5000. Let's drop it at the very end. Let's delete that one. Okay, what we need is a limiter, of course. Let's set it to -1.5. And then these are all these macros that I made, so we can play with these parameters here. And then the funniest part is that's a little button here called random. And when we click that, it's gonna drastically change and randomize all the macros here. So let's play with it now. We can play with the different notes. Okay, so what we can do now is to add another audio track. Let's feed the Drift Kick Factory 5000 in it. So we're just gonna press this button here, find it here. We're gonna arm these two tracks together, and then let's see if it works. Yeah, we see it reads here properly, perfect. So now we can just record a couple of samples. Let's try it now. Okay, let's press random. Let's try some higher notes. As you can hear, they are very different. And now we have all these nice samples. We can find the one that we really like the most. This one looks like it's the best one. Let's hear it. Yeah, okay, I like it. Now we can just loop this section. We can just make it nice and tidy. Let's make it start from the very beginning. The first transient, let's say here. Okay, till the very end, like so, and then just press crop sample. And there we have it. That's our sample. Okay, now we can just save it and keep it in your drum rack. Let's copy that to the drum rack we had. Okay, let's swap the factory kick that is in this drum rack. Can drop it here. And let's play the track now. So size, we can play with the volume, of course. can always drag this whole kick factory inside this drum rack cell. We can then play the music and play with the kick drum at the same time. Just remember to stop when you find the nicest one. So if you'd like to get it, along with a kick making cheat sheet, link is waiting for you in the description. So now we all know that Drift is a really versatile beast and you can create nearly any type of sound you could imagine in a couple of minutes. Not only kicks, but bass, keys, leads and pads. That would be super handy to be able to create whatever sound you wish, wouldn't it be? You just need to know how everything works inside out. But isn't that a bit too complicated? No worries, I got you covered. Just watch my complete Ableton Drift tutorial here and you will nail it faster than you'd think. If you found this video helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe for more. And also I have some super cool links and deals for you in the description under the video. Thanks so much for watching and see you guys in the next video. Cheers!